What's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the top 8 Western Conference teams and what they're looking like a quarter way through the season. We're going to talk about their stats, what they're doing, and their potential for the rest of the season. So let's get into it. With the first team we're going to be talking about today is the Los Angeles Lakers. They currently have the best record in the league right now at 12-4. With a record of 8-0 away and 4-4 at home. They are also 6th in scoring with 115 points per game, 3rd in rebounds with 48.6 rebounds a game, and they are 2nd in the NBA in blocks with 6.5 a game. They are also 2nd in the NBA when it comes to field goal percentage with a 48.8. With the additions of players like Montrezl Harrell and Schroeder, they were expected to do pretty good to start off the season so far, and they're living up to the hype, I believe. But when you have players like LeBron James and Anthony Davis on your team, you should never be expected to be less than a 3rd seed. And that pretty much wraps up what the Lakers have been doing a quarter way through the season. They're looking pretty impressive this far. Next team we're going to be talking about today is going to be the Los Angeles Clippers. They're actually tied with the Lakers for the best record in the NBA at 12-4. Considering this is my favorite team, I probably have more to say about this team than I do the Lakers. We're going to start off with their performance. Currently, they're leading the league right now with the three-point percentage at 43.3. They're also 3rd in field goal percentage with a 48.7. And the additions they made this offseason with players like Nicholas Batum, Serge Ibaka, and Luke Kennard, I believe this team actually has enough depth to get further than they did last year. That is if they don't choke, of course. But the way Kawhi and Paul George are gelling this season, I don't see them letting up anytime soon. The main thing that they were missing last year was chemistry because the first part of the season, Paul George is out and Kawhi's load management. But overall, the Clippers have came through the season and showed why they shouldn't be slept on. I definitely feel like players like Nicholas Batum was an underrated pickup the way he's been playing so far this season as well. And that pretty much wraps up what the Clippers have been doing a quarter way through the season. Let's move on to the next team. And what the third team we're going to be talking about today is going to be the Utah Jazz. They are actually 2nd in the NBA when it comes to rebounds. They are 5th when it comes to blocks, and they are 2nd when it comes to three-point shooting. Currently, they're sitting at a record of 8-6. They're 3rd right now in the NBA standings in the West. And by the way they're playing this season, I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow snuck into the 2nd seed before the season ends. The most notable players this season on the Utah Jazz this far is obviously Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, but who stands out to me the most has actually been Jordan Clarkson. The way he's been coming off the bench and just giving them good scoring when they needed it has actually been pretty clutch for their record. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if he was a 6th Man of the Year candidate by the end of the year, if he isn't already. But with players like Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, and also Mike Conley, I definitely feel like they should be considered contenders for the NBA season. And that pretty much finishes up how the Utah Jazz have done a quarter way through the season. Let's move on to the next team. The next team we're going to be talking about today is going to be the Phoenix Suns. They're currently sitting at a record of 8-6, and they're currently 15th in the league when it comes to points per game. They're 6th in assists, and unfortunately they're 6th in the league when it comes to fouling. At the beginning of the season, they came out hot to set a record of 5-1. Since then, they have seemed to slow down a little bit, but they definitely still seem like a competitive team, and I definitely feel like they could give each team in the West a run for their money. No question, their biggest acquisition this offseason was definitely Chris Paul. Chris Paul is the type of player to come into a franchise and change everything around. The Phoenix Suns have not been really known to be a winning franchise, but now that Chris Paul came here and gave Devin Booker a taste of what winning feels like, I definitely feel like that makes the team a little bit more hungry. I definitely believe we will be seeing the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs if everyone stays healthy. Chris Paul's the type to carry any team to the playoffs. We just seen it last year with the OKC Thunder. But with that being said, I'm definitely excited to see what the Phoenix Suns are about this season. Chris Paul being one of my favorite point guards of all time, if not my favorite point guard of all time, I definitely feel like he can bring that competitive nature to any team he goes to. And that pretty much wraps up on what the Phoenix Suns have been doing a quarter way through the season. Let's move on to the next team. And for the next team we're going to be talking about today is going to be the Portland Trail Blazers. They're currently sitting at a record of 8-6, and they're 8th in the league when it comes to points per game. They're 10th in steals, and they're 8th when it comes to three-pointers. Now, I definitely believe Portland Trail Blazers are a sleeper team. Don't get me wrong, they have a good amount of talent, but I feel like people are still just forgetting how good they really are. But for me personally, I definitely believe Robert Covington was the biggest piece they acquired this offseason. Just because I knew that they were lacking at the small forward position, and Robert Covington can guard almost any position in the league, 1 through 4. But unfortunately, Yusuf Nurkic has just gotten an injury not that long ago, and he should be out another 6 weeks due to a wrist injury. So I don't know how that's going to affect their record further on out. But with that being said, I'm pretty sure that wraps up what the Portland Trailblazers have been doing a quarter way through the season, and they definitely have potential to be one of the top teams in the West when healthy. So let's move on to the next team. For the next team we're going to be talking about today is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. They're currently sitting at a record of 7-6. They're 4th in the NBA when it comes to assists, and they're 1st in the NBA when it comes to steals. They're getting a lot of experience this season and learning a lot moving into the future. I don't really believe that the Memphis Grizzlies record really shows who they could be this season so far, mainly just because Ja Morant's been gone the past 2.5 weeks due to an ankle injury. But I'm definitely excited to see what the Memphis Grizzlies can do this season, especially watching these young players and Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. work together. But with that being said, that pretty much wraps up what the Memphis Grizzlies have been doing a quarter way through the season. Let's move on to the next team. The next team we're going to be talking about today is have him in my top 3 MVP candidates this season this far. Besides Jokic, the other two most notable players to me is Jamal Murray and Gary Harris. But I feel like the biggest flaw with this team is all coming down from Jamal Murray's consistency. Once he can be consistent, this team automatically could be a championship contender. The Denver Nuggets also did take a big loss this offseason, losing Jeremy Grant to the Detroit Pistons. But I feel like they picked up a pretty good replacement in a player like JaMychal Green, who's a good 3-and-D player at the small forward position who can guard players like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and LeBron James. I'm definitely excited to see what this Denver Nuggets team can do this season, though. With players like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, this is never a disappointing team to watch. They definitely have the entertainment factor on their side. But with that being said, that pretty much wraps up the video on the top 8 Western Conference teams and what they're doing a quarter way through the season. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it was helpful. If it was, I would appreciate if you guys left me a thumbs up and even subscribe to my channel. I'm definitely going to be posting more NBA content like this. All right, y'all. I'm out. Peace.